All right, let's get rocking and rolling. Good morning, everybody. Thanks for joining. Zach Eichenberger here, Director of Product and Services for Controlled Product Systems Group. Just a heads up, we are recording the session as we normally do, so we can send that out to you post-webinar. You can share that with your cohorts. Our YouTube channel, by the way, if you ever go to Control Products and look at playlists, we've got a whole playlist of past webinars you can take advantage of and take advantage of some educational opportunities. Mics are muted, so use the chat feature here in Zoom. We'll make sure to get those questions answered. Mike, I'll monitor that chat line and feed those questions to you
Awesome.
as pertinent. So we
Zach,
got what's that?
The videos up on YouTube, is that public?
Yeah, they're all public.
Awesome.
Yeah, you bet. I can send that link out to the whole playlist if you guys like after the session. So Mike, thanks for joining. We got Mike Torin here, the founder and president of Infinity RFID. He's going to walk us through the product line, update us on some technology changes that we just mentioned, share some tips and tricks for a successful installation. So I think on the subject of tips and tricks, for those of you that would consider yourselves lifers in this industry or journeymen in the industry, for me anyways, it's the nuggets that I'll pull out of a session like this that I find super valuable and probably gets me excited. As most of you know, I'm a product geek. So if I can pull a nugget out of a 1 hour session, I'm pretty stoked. But the key to that is asking questions. So we want you to ask a lot of questions through this session. And if you, again, are super experienced in Infinity or in RFID in general, this is your opportunity to kind of demystify perhaps a topic around the subject of RFID. So Mike and his team, they've got a rich history in not just RFID, but the industry as a whole. They understand perimeter security and access. Makes them an amazing resource. Pair that with high quality products and great service and partnership opportunities to help you grow your RFID business and keep your clients, as I like to say, sticky. There are fantastic opportunities for you to do that by partnering with CPSG and Infinity RFID. So RFID, for the most part, as we're discussing it today, in my mind, it's pretty simple, right? But you can get a little complicated when you're integrating toll tags, or you've got tight lanes, or you're integrating with, data protocols and systems that are outside of Wiegand perhaps. And even ordering tags for, pre-existing jobs can be challenging. So I think between Infinity RFID, CPSG's RFID team based out of Texas, led by Butch Showers, I think it'd be hard pressed to find a stronger brain trust of support in the industry. So make sure you're leveraging those groups to find success in the industry. So Mike, thanks again for joining. You've been on our sessions a few times, but it's been a little while. So good to have you back.
Yeah. Man, you did such a good job. I had to write notes down because there's some things that you're hitting that I think down the road in this presentation, I got to remember to come back to. So man, you are on it today, Zach.
It's been a good week.
It's been good. Yes, definitely. So yeah, Zach was saying, I'm Mike Torin. We've been in business about 11 years now. Actually, just after 11 years. History, I used to actually, if you want to go way back in the machine, I helped design gate operators 20 plus years ago, and then got into the perimeter security market. Was a sales rep for Control Products for a bit, do some application things. So I sold everything from cameras to crash barriers to phone entries to everything, video cameras, the whole gambit, and then went back specifically to RFID probably about 14 years ago, and then really focused on that market. So that's really what prompted Infinity to get founded. So I'll go through this presentation I created for you guys. Let me start this guy. So basically, like Zach was saying, we're going to do a product review. I'm going to give you some updates, new things that have been developed, help you choose the right solution for RFID. If someone calls up and says, "Hey, I need to do some way of identifying vehicles as they come through my gate." But along the way, feel free, put in the chat any questions you have. I've got a wealth of knowledge. I help. If you call me and you have a specific problem or a project you want to work on, I will definitely help you, give you a lot of background info of how to make that work. Probably the easiest and most successful as possible. So the agenda, tell you a little about us a little further, go over my current products, kind of give you some tips and tips and tricks about system selection by the application, what type of application, whether it's gated communities, parking. Got some new products coming out. This is going to require a little bit of a transition for us. And then one thing that I really am trying to push for the last couple of years was RFID tools. Because those tools help you guys be more successful out in the field and help you as distributors be more successful, giving them the tools to be able to take a look at a job and make sure that there aren't any, isn't an interference or there isn't anything that might make things go sideways that you didn't anticipate. And last, we'll do Q&A if you guys have any questions at the very end. So in a nutshell, like the elevator pitch, Infinity RFID, we're custom RFID solution providers. And when I say custom, we're talking about tag printing. So we actually do all of the tag production here at the facility that I'm in right now. Every one of the tags is printed, programmed, tested here. So we have an opportunity here to do custom things like put a logo, put your company name on there, to order more, call this number, go to this website. So there's an opportunity to do that. If you do it in black, it doesn't really affect lead times as long as we get the logos and everything proofed up front. We'll keep that in file, and when you reorder, new tags come the same way. Behind that, because we're also doing the custom programming at the same time, we can program different formats. Not going to name names, but I do make tags that work with other people's readers. I also, next line item down, I also do reader configurations where I will read other tag formats as well. So I keep that kind of as an off menu item, but if you call us or you call control, ask and say, hey, I've got this job. I'm not really happy with what's going on, or this company has disappeared. Can you take this tag format and make it work with yours and help us transition over? That's something we can totally do. And there's a lot of RFID out in the world right now. A lot of the major players have very solid systems. What I'm seeing is on the fringe, there's people that are trying to break into the market. Some here are local, based in the US. Some are trying to get from the outside. And if they come in and are not successful, you've now got you've got a reader and a tag platform that can't really be furthered. So call us, give us some samples. We'll see what we can do for you. So talking about the current line, we do tags and readers, RFID tags. Here's a funny one. So this is a shameless self-promotion of me, but it is one of our RFID tags on an industry vehicle. If you ever go and see the nice high security van, that is the high security van right there, and me giving the thumbs up with the tag on it. So that always makes me laugh. So through the product line, here's the most, I guess, probably the most popular one. And the reason why it's the most popular is when I say universal mounting tag, this is our Zenith SE's UMT002. It's because it's multi-surface. Prior to universal tags coming out in the market, you had to choose whether it's going to be on glass, which would be your windshield, or it'd be on plastic, which would be basically your headlamp. What we've been able to do with the tag design and the antenna design, we've been able to tune and develop an antenna that can go on both surfaces and work equally well. So now you can take one tag, go to the community, and you could choose whether it's going to be windshield or headlamp, depending on the vehicle. So one tip when it comes to RFID tags and vehicles is a lot of the high-end vehicles that are out in the market, so your Mercedes, your BMWs, Range Rovers, they'll all have a metallic tint that they put into the windshield. Some of it's most often it's for solar heating to keep ice off the windshield or to add a little bit of RF blocking out of it. But what it does is it basically detunes the antenna and doesn't allow the antenna to work well and absorb power from the reader. So if you've got a car like that, you either have to go to the owner's manual, find out a cutout for a toll tag area and put the tag there, or use an external mounted tag. So what's powerful about this one, and the reason why this is the most popular, is it takes all that out of the equation. You basically deploy one style of tag. Homeowner pulls it up, he's got a Range Rover. Okay, let's not even go to the windshield. Let's put it on the headlamp. Call it a day. And that's really why this has become the most popular. One thing that Infinity does, it's a little bit different than everybody else. Our break and removal is what I call true break and removal. If you look at the bottom left here, that's our break and removal there. The silver ink antenna is actually embedded in the adhesive, and there's only really a protective top layer that keeps everything together. Once you peel that top layer off, you've now exposed the antenna and the adhesive to the elements, and that'll break down relatively quickly. You cannot, with a razor blade, go underneath that adhesive, try to take it off. You'll destroy the tag. You'll fracture the antenna and it won't work. Conversely, most of the break and removal that's out in the market is basically two laminated pieces with the antenna in between and some adhesive on the bottom, and then they die cut each one of the corners to give you like a tear point. For those, you can take a razor blade underneath, lift the whole tag off. It's not that big of a deal, like, on a windshield, because you've got to get access inside the vehicle. It's more of an issue when I look at like an external tag, like a headlamp tag, because that's on the public side of your vehicle when you're on the parking lot. So that's where I think it's most important. But just know that we do something a little bit different with our break and removal, and that's another thing that separates us from the others. Next line item down is certification. So this isn't a big one. I've been trying to market this, but all my tags have been Omniair certified. So what Omniair is they're a test, I guess, a test body that deals with the tolls across the country. So they've actually tested these tags to be rated to be on vehicles across the country over time and basically survive the rigors of toll applications. Same things that we'd use in gated communities and parking lots. So you're out in the elements, you're environmentally protected, you're electronically protected, but it's certified to do that. And only tags that are going into the toll market really have to get certified. Most of my peers in the industry don't get to that level of certification. So you never really know whether it's just a tag they found and brought over from the supply chain side, or whether it's really a vehicle tag. And then the DOT compliance side of things is, there are some states in the country that actually want to have you test your product on the headlamp so that you don't drop the headlamp's light output below a certain standard. I think it's something like 60,000 candela. We've actually tested all of our headlamp tags, or anything that we can put on a headlamp, to not drop it below that, and we've got the test report handy. So that's one of the things to take a look at. So those two, that one light item is really a byproduct of us being partnered up with a tolling agency. They're looking at it from a governmental standpoint of what's legal and what can be used, and what's for longevity, what can be used on the tolling side. And I'm leveraging that technology, bringing it over to the access control side. So you're really getting a good product that's actually made specifically and tested for its purpose, being on a vehicle and being automatically identified at a distance. The last thing is just to give you an idea how big this tag is. 3.15. It's about 3 inches by 1 inches. Not a huge tag. And then just as an application photo, I show you on the right side, that Tesla. One other good tip about universal tags and headlamp tags in general, it's for automotive plastic. So it doesn't have to necessarily be the headlamp. It could be the bumper. It could be like here, you see a parking marker. It could be down there. It could be on the valance. It could be on the side mirror. I mean, anything that is plastic that doesn't have metal within 2 inches of it is pretty much fair game. Now, what I realize is a lot of people don't want to put a sticker on a painted surface. So I would choose, I'd clear it with the homeowner, clear it with the community, but probably as a caution, not a painted surface. Clear lens is a good one, or maybe a black valance would be a good one.
Hey, Mike, the DOT compliance
Yeah.
on a headlamp, they're also looking at safety, right?
Yeah.
And how much light is coming through that lens or whatnot. So using a tag on a headlamp could be could put someone in a position of liability, right? If it's
it has, like It's something that's out there for sure. So California is one of the ones that requires you to test the headlamp tag prior to going into the market. There has been a couple of lawsuits. So I guess the most profiled one I've seen was, it was a lawyer living in a gated community, had an issue with the community and wanted to go after the community using the RFID system as kind of the reason to go after him. And he argued that the headlamp tags made the vehicles in the community unsafe. So he sued the community on that premise. Well, luckily for the community and the dealer, because the dealer got dragged into the lawsuit as well. Basically, he sued everybody he could. Luckily for the guys on the defense side, they were using Sirt's product, which is the company that I used to work for. Very, very similar. Also did tolling, did everything else. So they crossed their T's and dotted their I's. So all we really had to do from a defense standpoint was provide the test report saying, look, prior to putting this in the market, here's the test report that proves on these many headlamps we've tested it and it doesn't drop the light output below the minimum threshold set by the DOT. So there's actually it's FMVSS 108 is the actual standard that we're testing towards. And I think it's 60,000 candela, but it is a safety thing. So I would say as somebody who's bidding a job or somebody that's looking to do that, just take a look at the products that you're bidding, because you could be giving yourself up to liability. Same thing with the reader side. We haven't got to the reader yet, but make sure that on the reader itself that you're purchasing, there's a sticker that references an FCC ID. Because that's a mandatory thing for all RFID readers, whether it's mine or anybody else's. Labeling is important. I'll say it that way. Yeah. Because for you to be legal in the world out there creating RF fields, you have to have the FCC ID plainly marked on your product. If you don't, either it brings into question that, number one, do you really have an FCC ID, and two, you're definitely not compliant.
Yeah, perfect, awesome. Thank you. There's a nugget.
No problem. No problem. Yeah, hit me up with those. I mean, I've got a lot of info, and I'll share it. I'll let it go and let you guys know what it really is. So the next tag I've got is my headlamp tag. So SGHMT002. This was my most popular tag till that universal tag came out, mainly because it takes the windshields out of the equation, like I talked about before. But it has a lot of the same features. It's just specific to automotive plastic. So fiberglass, headlamps, bumpers. I mean, I've seen a lot of different ways to mount this, and as long as you're 2 inches away from metal, you're successful. One thing that I think a lot of people don't take into account as being metal is also the metallized film that goes around the headlamp lens. So on those, you want to make sure that you're at least 2 inches away from that as well. What will happen if you're too close is you'll start sacrificing read range. So I'll tell you a quick story. There was a community here locally in LA area. They had, I think it was a board president, it was a Dodge sports car. I'm trying to remember which one it was, probably a Challenger or something like that. And he was complaining that he wasn't getting great read range. So it got elevated enough where I went out there and I was looking at it, and it was only maybe half an inch below the hood. And he pulled up, gate would, the reader wasn't reading and the gate wouldn't open. And I told him to pop his hood. And just by popping the hood and have the hood come up 2 inches, gate open, started reading. I'm like, look, you got at least, in my literature, it says 2 inches. You got to be at least 2 inches away from metal surface. So that proximity to that hood was enough to not make it read. And as soon as he hit the release on the hood and the hood popped up, read no problem, gate open. So it's the installation portion of it actually is pretty key. When we get a little farther down the road, remind me, and I'll talk about some things when we talk about applications and choosing the right solution. But that's another good nugget to talk about. And then we have glass specific tags. So our SCWMT002 windshield tag, tuned for automotive glass. Basically, a lot of the same things. This one, actually, I don't believe we went through and did Omni-Air with this one. I think this was one that went to our market specifically. And because it's not on a headlamp, there's no DOT certification. Actually, let me take that back. There is one application where you would use this on a headlamp, and that's if you've got a classic vehicle like a 60s Mustang. I've actually just came in contact with somebody who had a 60s Mustang and needed to put a tag on the headlamp. They put the universal tag on the headlamp, which actually is DOT. But technically, you could take this tag, put it on a glass headlamp, and it would work just as well as it was in the windshield. I prefer you use the UMT, the SZ UMT 002 Universal, because that one actually has got the test report. But in a pinch or in a place where no one's concerned, you could use this one as well. And it's really low profile. This is actually probably the smallest tag we've got. So you're looking at about 3" by a half, almost a little more than a ½ inch. And then here's one that it's a love-hate relationship for me. It's a transferable windshield tag. It's probably one of the only ones in the market that are made this way. Basically, it's our windshield tag, but it's laminated in 2 layers of electrostatic cling, so like a vinyl type of cling. And it's made to stick to the windshield without any adhesive. And that way you could have it on there for months. Say you've got a rental car or you need to transfer it to another vehicle. You can actually take it off as long as you keep it clean. The mounting surface is clean, put it back on its liner. You can store it, put it on a new car, take it off the new car, or say if it's a rental, take it off the rental, put it back on your car when you get your car back. It's made to be transferred, not a super crazy amount of times. I would say probably transfer it less than 10 times, but it's made to be portable. I love that part of it. The part that I don't love about this tag is it takes a lot of, it's not everybody understands, just out of the box how to use it. It's not that intuitive. We write some good instructions. We give you an alcohol wipe for every tag. But what people don't do, and they get a little, I guess they get a little lazy about it. I think it might be an indictment of humanity. If they don't clean the surface, it's not going to stick very well. In fact, if they don't push all the air bubbles out, it's not going to stick very well. So the right way to do it is to clean the surface, and while the surface is still wet, so you take the alcohol wipe, you wipe it down. While it's still wet, you stick the tag on, and then you basically run your hands across the tag, your fingers across the tag, get rid of any air bubbles. Once you do that, it's going to be on there, and it's going to be on there for a long time. The reason why you don't do the air bubble thing is that's one thing that'll expand and contract through temperature cycling during the day. So that's enough to get the tag surface away from the windshield surface and start working its way off the vehicle. One of these days, I got to do a presentation where I show you like just the bad things I see in the market and how they're being used. I mean, I've seen these tags on the dash. I've seen them taped to the windshield. I've seen all kinds of weird stuff. But used properly, it's a great tag. It's just, unfortunately, it takes some discipline to use it correctly. But it's our only sticker-based transferable tag. And the actual cling material you see it's 4 inches by about 2 1/4. This is probably our most popular, and what I'd recommend as being a transferable tag, and that's our rear mirror tag. So basically, goes over the rear mirror. There's a hook on it, and it's got an RFID inlay inside, right behind where you see my logo. It's relatively small, 4 3/4 by 3 1/4. The one cool thing about this one too is we've done a lot of different custom logos on this one. We can do front, back. We can do barcodes. We can do, any color you'd like, pretty much. The only thing about when we do a custom color like this, though, there is a minimum. So I would recommend you do at least 2,000 tags, because our plastics guy is going to have to run a number of tags. Now you can do 2,000 tags and make them all different colors. So you could have 5 different colors in the 2,000. But at least the quantity to create this, I would go at least that far. If you're going to go less than 2,000, what's better is if we do on the far right there with the big W, is we can produce some stickers that we put on top of the tag, our standard tag, and that creates the custom piece for you. That's more economical going forward. And then we've got a couple more plastic tags. We don't sell a whole lot of these. I'm surprised every year that people buy license plate tags. When you've got a headlamp tag that's that low profile, why would you buy a license plate tag? But we sell them. So here's what it looks like, and then that the application photo is what it looks like on a car. The one that I do sell some of, but yeah, just kind of curious why I don't sell more is the metal mount tag. So it's really made for, that's the one in the middle. That's really made to be riveted to, like a vehicle, like a forklift or on a container or something where you want to track it going through a portal, but it's not a passenger vehicle. Something more industrial, something that needs to be encased and protected a little bit more. That's what I'd use that for. There are some people or some communities out there that use it as a dash tag. Not a big fan of that idea, but it does work. So it could be something that if you really want to throw something on a dash or on a visor, that might be your solution. And the last one on the bottom is we do make a credit card style tag. I caution against that one because there's two ways. Let me see if I've got a card here somewhere I can show you. There's a specific way you want to hold that up. There we go. So you actually want to hold it up by the edges. That way your fingers aren't blocking the antenna at all. Definitely don't hold it up like that. Your read range is going to go way down if you do it that way. You got to hold it from the edges. That's kind of one of the biggest concerns I have when somebody wants to use these tags is, number one, how they present the tag, and number two, it doesn't get the same read range as the rest of my tags. So you're looking at probably a 10 to 12 foot read range versus something in the 20s on the other tag. So that's another concern you'd have on the card tag. It would really be for like a side fire configuration where you're driving up and the reader's to the side of you. So you roll down your window and you hold up the tag and there you go. That would be the best, I guess, best application I'd use for that card tag. And that's the card. That's all the tags. If you got any questions, real quick.
We got one question about tags. So if the tag is installed in the middle of the headlamp, will the heat from the light shorten the tag life or affect it in any way?
It should not. Yeah, it shouldn't do it. Heat shouldn't be an issue because we're deploying those in Vegas. We're deploying those in Phoenix, in places where the ambient temperature is already pretty high, and you've got, headlamps on top of that. So I think on the temperature spec, I'd have to look it up, but I don't believe that you could achieve a temperature that could get that high to cause an issue with it. On that point, actually, there's a good. Let me go backwards. One thing that you notice on all of my tags is the black dot. Now I can give you kind of a history lesson on why the black dot's there, because I think Cirrus was the innovator of putting out the first headlamp tag, if I remember correctly, and they quickly learned on the toll roads and employing millions of tags that the light coming out of the headlamp can get strong enough to interfere with the IC chip that's in the tag. So that dot is actually to block the light from hitting the chip on the inside of the headlamp tag. And you'll see some of my peers have gone through those growing pains as well. They'd go and put a tag on there and then found out later on that they're sensitive enough to the light that you've got to put a dot. And in fact, there was a dealer that called me that was saying that he asked me specifically, he says, "Hey, how come my tag stops working, or how come the community's tag stop working whenever they turn the lights on?" And I go, "Well, number one, whose tag are you using? And then two, here's why." So that's why the dots are there. Now the dot on the outward facing side, as you look at it on the windshield tag, I put a dot there too. Some of the older chips, Alien Higgs 3 and older, were sensitive to UV light. Now, over time, ambient UV light, especially if it's strong enough, can actually interfere with the data that's on the chip. So rather than take that precaution, I just basically put a dot on both sides. That way, there's no way either side you're going to have an issue with UV or the high intensity light.
Got it. Another nugget.
Yeah, I think we had another question, I think, or no?
Yep. What about ice buildup?
Yes. So the two largest interference sources, I guess, for RFID would be metal and water. So that's the reason why if you hold the tag like this, you're going to lose read range, is because the water in your body is actually going to absorb the RF. So ice is also bad. So standing water is a problem for RF, especially if it's in front of a tag, and that could be ice. So you really have to go and de-ice your windshield or de-ice your headlamps before you drive, to allow them to work at your RFID point. But I think it's also a safety thing. You'd also want to do that just for safety reasons. Now, moving water is not so bad. So rain, mist, you can still get enough power through, to read a tag from through those environments, with the exception of if it's raining too hard for you to see, you're not going to read. But if you can drive safely, you've got enough of a clear path that you can actually read a tag. Because remember that you're creating this RF field, and you're multiple times a second contacting, talking to these tags. So you might get your read rate down because you've got rain, but you're still going to have enough of a communication path to be able to get enough data. But standing water, no, can't do it. None of us can do that one. All right, well,
All right, looks like we got good questions so far.
yeah, those are great questions. Great questions. Keep them coming. Anything you want to ask. So RFID readers. So we've actually pared down the product line. So just quickly, so the RFID reader, for those that aren't too familiar with RFID, it's a two-part system. The credential basically has an antenna and a chip attaches to the vehicle. That's your ID, and then you've got a RFID reader that creates a field that talks to the chip, talks to the basically the field. The power of the field gets absorbed by the antenna. That's why it's passive. Activates the chip. Chip sends the data back to the reader. Reader collects that data, sends it upstream to an access controller, and it's up to the controller to decide whether this car, this tag is allowed through the gated community, or through the gate. We'll say it that way. So the reader really is a data collection device. Think of it that way. Tag is the data. Reader collects the data, sends the data upstream automatically as soon as it gets into the field. That's really the whole gist of RFID. So the hands down most popular reader I've got is the SC1000W UL Carina. Probably at this point, 50 to 1, 60 to 1. Very popular. There's a ton of them out there in the world. And then what you got, basically what you get with the SC1000W is what you see in the picture to the right. You get a mounting bracket. You get the reader itself, 20 feet of cable that's pre-attached. You get a Wiegand interface module, because most of my peers actually, you get Wiegand out of the cable that comes from the reader. I like having an external Wiegand module because it gives you a little more troubleshooting and technical ability. So the Wiegand module itself has got LEDs on it to tell you I read a tag data made it all the way down to the module. I created a Wiegand output. I've got a test relay output. I fired that. I'm sending data back up to the reader to reconfigure the reader. I've got an active arming loop. So there's a lot of I/O that you can glean from that Wiegand module that you couldn't if the reader had one LED and didn't have any other external way of telling you, what was happening. Plus, I give you the ability to hook in other things. Power supply, which is if going counterclockwise, reader, mounting bracket, Wiegand module, power supply, it's a 12-volt 3-amp, and then U-bolts for the mounting bracket. And the mounting bracket can be on a pole or it can be a flat mount. That's why the surface you see coming up is made, it's flat, so it can be on a post, on a wall, or it could be on a round pole. A round pole would have to be 1 3/4 inches in diameter or less. So we got some questions.
Yep, a couple questions here. Barry asked, what is expected and or maximum range of your reader, and does the type of tag affect the range?
Good question, and yes and yes. So the read range, typically what I state is 20 to 25 feet. It really depends on the environment you got. I've been to places where you're getting 30 feet. I've also gotten to places where you're getting in the high teens, not quite 20 feet. And it really comes down to Do you have other devices in the area that are putting out noise at 900 megahertz or UHF band? Do you have a lot of foliage? That would all. Do you have high power lines going over or close by to where the roadway's at? All those interference sources would affect the read range you've got at the site. The other thing that is more controllable is how far of a distance are you running your power supply to the reader? That can also affect how far of a range you've got. If you're using just the 20 feet to my 6-foot power cable, that's where you're going to get your 20 to 25 feet. But if you have to extend that cable, say the reader to your power source is a little farther away and you got to go 40 feet, 50 feet, that's going to start affecting your range. Because this is a 12 volt DC powered reader. So you're looking at a voltage drop between where the 12 volt source is to how far you have to go to where the reader's at. And the longer you go, the bigger the voltage drop is going to be, less power is going to get to the reader, and therefore less power is going to be generated on the output looking for the tag. So think of it that way. You want to keep it under 50 feet. And then answer the part number 2 of the question is, yeah, each one of the tags has their own kind of read range. Most of the sticker tags are up in that 20 to 25 feet. When you get to, say, the hang tag, you're probably more closer to 15 to 20 feet. And then with that card tag, you're down in the 10 to 12, 10 to 13 foot range. So that's kind of where that strat is. What makes things a little more difficult, and this is kind of the moving target when it comes to RFID, is vehicles also matter and where you put it on the vehicle. Now, if you want to go to my YouTube channel, I've got some good content about where to mount the tag. How do you mount a windshield tag? How do you mount a headlamp tag? And in there, I talk about using a piece of tape to temporarily tape the tag to the surface. Because if you don't do that and you just kind of put it on there and then you test it, if you put it on in a permanent manner, you've got to take that tag off if that's not the right spot. So I would always recommend taking a piece of tape, taping it up there, and then testing it. And if you're not getting the range that you expect to get out of it, or a range that makes it viable for the community, I would start taking that tape, just peeling it off, start moving it around the windshield until you get to the spot that gives you the best read range. That's what I would do. And that way you're taking a lot of the guesswork. You're not destroying tags needlessly. And once you find that spot, that's when you'd mount the tag to the surface. That's the way that I would do that. And we've got some tools. I'll talk about some tools later on in this webinar that'll help you take some of that guesswork out. So like RF power meter tools. I actually have found a pretty inexpensive spectrum analyzer that you can use, and that'll give you an idea walking around the community. Say you come out there, kind of stealing a little bit from down the road, but it'll give you an idea of what environment you're going into when you're doing a job walk. So that's something good to know.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah, and with these days, it seems like everything's wireless, right? We're sending Wiegand data wireless, we're sending Ethernet wireless. And,
yeah.
So definitely those things are going to affect, and we've ran into that, right, Mike, where we have some of those devices kind of in that range. So we got to be cognizant of that. And I think I was about to tee up another question, and I'd say we park it for the moment, but in RFID, you kind of got to ask yourself, is long range even a good thing? Because there are times where there's certainly times where you want long range, but we find in the majority of our applications, we want what's more important is defining that range in a very specific area. But I'd say for the sake of time, we got 20 minutes here. We could pause, but I do have a few more questions if we want to hammer those out real quick.
Sure.
Yeah, Rick asked, any plans of a reader with a built-in basic controller, access controller?
We actually have that ability today. It's not filled out the way that I would like it to be, but you could pair this reader or the reader I'm talking about next with my Ethernet to Wiegand module. And in there, you can create a very rudimentary whitelist. So it's got a list of filters you can put into play. And you could make that filter as narrowed down as a specific tag. So you could have a list of 20 tags in there that you want to be able to get into the app, into the parking area, the portal. And then you can manage that list, through a computer, either TCP/IP or through a USB port. So I've got the ability to do a very, very basic one. You wouldn't be able to do time zones or access levels or anything like that. But down the road, I do actually plan on coming out with a very basic two gate controller. I even want to call it a door controller because I don't want to go inside. I'm a perimeter guy. So I do have down the road a roadmap to have a very inexpensive two gate controller. That way, if you've got an in and an out, or you've got two, guest and resident entry, that you could do it and not have all the bells and whistles. But I don't want to step on my access controller friends. I want to make something very basic where, no, you want to do anything beyond this, you're calling up the other guys because they have all of that built out, full featured and off and running.
Yeah. Again, for the sake of time, I'll pause, but I could think of a way that you could do that right here.
Yeah.
In a very simple matter. Cam asks, what backhaul communication method or frequency does the reader communicate with the controller?
So this one's 26-bit Wiegand. That's really the communication to the controller. The next reader I've got, and I'll use this as a good time to move to the next one. This guy here, he is 26-bit Wiegand, but we can actually adjust the Wiegand parameters in the Ethernet to Wiegand module to go all the way to 37-bit. I would love to partner with somebody to do it network-based, and that way we get rid of Wiegand altogether. And I'm just another network device talking to your network device and passing data securely over that. But I haven't found a good partner to do that with. But anything that's Ethernet-based, basically, we can get rid of a lot of the other pieces. And now it's just a Cat5 to a PoE switch, and then from there into your network. And then, we're eliminating a lot of things once you can pull that off. So just to segue into this one, ST2000W Tarvos is a multi-protocol reader. Comes in a kit, 26-foot cable reader, Wiegand module, which is the Ethernet to Wiegand module you see there. Mounting bracket, and then you get a PoE injector with it, a 2-port PoE injector. I have the option for a 4-port switch, but that's the architecture, basically. Cat5 from the reader to the switch, Cat5 from the module to the switch, and then we've got OSTP is also on this. I didn't put in a line item, but it is one of the ports you see on that module. And then there's two Wiegand outputs because this reader is a 2-channel, so it can go primary antenna is channel 1, and then on the bottom you've got a port for a secondary antenna. So you can actually cover 2 lanes with one reader, one Wiegand interface. It's multi-protocol. When I say multi-protocol, this is one of the other hot buttons that I want people to understand. Everybody in the market on the access control side, except for TransCore and some really old AWID LR911s, are all ISO 6C. So myself and everybody else, but those two are 6C. Those two are actually ISO 6B, which is a variant protocol. They're not really accessible with any other readers. This is one of the few on the market where I can add licenses and read everything. So I can read 6B, I can read toll tags like in the Northeast, EasyPass. That's another protocol by itself. Think of it this way: any toll technology that came into the world, I can bring over into the access control side, and that's where this reader came from. This reader was really a tolling reader, but with that, I can leverage reading all of those other passes. In addition, so I can read TransCore's Ego and Sego with this. I can read, like I said, EasyPass. I can read, I'm trying to think of the other ones. Title 21 was a big protocol here in California. I can read that one, convert it to Wiegand. So that's really the big takeaway from the Tarvos, and the reason why it's kind of still in my catalog. But it's expensive. I'll be upfront. This reader is more expensive than a TransCore reader. So unless you really want to have that bridge to go across from an expensive tag form factor and go into, say, something that's a little bit less expensive, like 6C tags, that would be really the bridge to use for this guy. Or if you wanted super far read range, because this one I can do in a high power part 90 mode, and I get 60, almost 75 feet, depending on the community or the application. Seeing as we got we're crunched on time, I'm gonna really have to fly because we're like.
Yeah, one quick question, and I think you can answer it quickly. Isaac asked, and you might have to go back a slide, is there time adjustment as far as how often it reads, and where are those adjustments?
So yes, so if you look on the Wiegand interface down on the bottom there, It's not so much, actually, let me back that. It's going to read at whatever rate it reads at, which is pretty fast. It's going to beep away and tell you that it sees a tag and it's processing the data. Where you can slow down the data to your access controller is on the weakened interface here. So you look at the bottom 4 switches, you've got 1 sec, 2 sec, 4 sec, 8 sec. That's how many seconds it'll delay before it resends the data. So, and this is the same tag. So you have a car in front of the reader's reading away the same tag over and over and over again, and you're sending the same weekend ID upstream to the access controller. This is a way for you to go and delay that repeat tag read up to 15 seconds. Those switches actually stack. So if you put 8 sec on or 8 seconds on and 2 seconds on, you're at 10 seconds at that point. You turn them all on, you're at 15 seconds. So that's the thought process in that. The one thing that doesn't quite work though is if you've got multiple tags in the car, multiple IDs going through, that's going to reset that timer. So if you're going to want to do, if you're having an issue where, well, if you got a site where you've only got one of our RFID tags in the car, this will work great. If you've got a place where you've got residents that have multiple tags that are mine on the car, or you're reading my tags plus others, you won't be able to effectively use this because you'll have multiple tags resetting that timer scenario. If you had that situation, what I would do is I'd upgrade to this module here, the E2W. That's got a serial port, can be used with the Carina. That one can have up to 16 individual tags at a time and keep that timer keep that timer active for each individual tag. So that'd be the way I would do that if you've got multiple tags in the car and those tags are meaningful. I'll say it that way. All right, so we got to go. We got 20 minutes. We got to go. Quick thing. Honestly, for a lot of these projects, I would go with the Carina. Gated communities, apartments, single family homes, Carina, and then choose your appropriate RFID tag. If you want to just do a one size fits all, I would go universal tag SC1000W. Same thing with parking. I would do SC1000W. There you might get away with maybe a transferable tag. So say this is a multi-use parking lot, parking garage where you've got tenants and the lower level is all retail. You want to give tenant access, you could issue them hang tags. Maybe you can put a logo for the community there. And that way they know when they park that they're, people driving around, security driving around can see that they belong there. They have the logo for the community or for the apartment building or the upper floors, and it's a way for them to go from car to car. That's where I would go with that. The one area where I would go and recommend the Tarbos is if you're doing mainly multi-protocol, like we talked before, or it's something where you need longer read range or a little bit higher security. I'd go with the Tarbos. Like this is right here. This is a government building in the southeast, and there's a lot of readers on this one. So there's one going into the roll-up door, and then there's an ingress and an outgress, or right now outbound lane. So the Tarbos is actually the one coming in, and then the one going out is that extra antenna on the other side. And then, yeah, you can see there's bollards, hydraulic bollards in the ground. So it tells you the level of security they want on this building. But that's really where I would go. If you're going to do something that either needs super long read range, like a logistics place where you've got like maybe a bus depot, where you've got large vehicles that are having to make a left-hand turn, go across traffic, but get read at a distance, I would use a Tarbos, multi-protocol, or something where you need a lot of customization on how to filter out and look at tags. I'd go Tarbos. So things I really wanted to get towards, we've got some new developments coming out. 2 years ago, we did an RFID tag change with our chip. Unfortunately, I can't control the chip manufacturers, and they're going and making a change in me again that is making me kind of upgrade my tag offerings. I can still get the same chip. They're just getting rid of the UTID program that I had before. So to give you in a nutshell, the way that I knew it was my tag versus another tag out there in the world is I had my own unique ID on embedded into the chip, kind of like basically it's a manufacturing ID that isn't changeable outside of the manufacturing plant. So I could easily look at the chip and go, oh, that's mine. Great. All right, process it. They've decided not to further that program. So I've had to go and create an encryption program via software in the tag. So it's a double-edged sword. You burned me once for 2 years ago when you discontinued the chip I used. You burned me this time. I'm going to a program now that I'm not using it specific to the tag. I'm able to go and program any tag to be used and be authenticated. The good news about that, and what I'll show you that I'm really excited about, is that opens the door for some new tag designs and using some more sensitive, some better and more sensitive IC chips. And then I'll roll out kind of the pieces that we're putting together to help you guys support the old readers in the field and update them, and then and what the process will be. And then the good news also is I've known this was coming for a bit, so I've been actually proactively shipping product that is compatible with the new platform for almost a year now. I mean, we're a couple months away from being a year, and anything that I've touched, either as a remote support, it's like, say I remotely logged into your computer, did some changes to your readers to update, I've future-proofed it. The same thing with RMAs that come in. Anything that's come in for repair, future-proofed it. So I'll give you the exact dates in a little bit here. So here's what I'm kind of really excited about. So new universal tags coming out. It's a little bit smaller than the one before, but the performance gains we're getting out of this, the new antenna design and the new chip are significant. I mean, if you look at the generation, so I tried to kind of quantify this into a graph. So on the far right, you've got on plastic and on glass. So longer than 2 years ago, I had an I had a headlamp tag and a universal tag, and that's where the floor is, right? Next generation, 5-6% better reading. We're going double digit, so we're over 13% and 17.5% increase in sensitivity. So what that means is it takes less power from the RFID reader to activate the tag and read the ID. So I can't at this point quantify what that is in footage, but I can tell you it takes less power, much less power to activate it. That's gonna be a longer read range. I just can't give you what it is, 4 to 5 feet, 6 to 7 feet. I couldn't give you that piece of it. So I'm excited about that piece. And it is physically different, so you'll be able to tell it from the older versions. Same thing with the headlamp tag. There's a new headlamp tag coming out. It's a little bit, it's actually about the same size. Not as fine of a line on the antenna, but very similar. That one's a huge gain. That's over 19%. So we got a little bit of a bump going from generation 1 to generation 2. Huge difference, generation 3. This is probably the biggest jump here, is the windshield tag. So we went from having a really low profile piece that was 6%, say, above the first generation. Now we're going over 25%. Significant difference. Part of it is also it's going to be a little bigger form factor. One of the challenges we had for those of you guys using custom logos, it was really hard for us to put a custom logo on that smaller tag because it was half an inch tall. It was really hard to stick one in there. This new one will be able to do a lot more with the real estate. And because our tags are clear, all our sticker tags are really clear. They're not really, they don't really impact the aesthetic of the vehicle as much as, say, if something was solid color. So it won't be that big of a deal when it goes from just a little bit, maybe a half inch bigger, maybe a full size, 1 inch tall tag from a half inch tag. But here's another big one. Rearview mirror tags are a lot more sensitive. We got a little bit of a bump, only a 3% change from generation 1 to generation 2. Generation 3 is almost, it's 19% different from the previous. And that's a brand new inlay tuned for the hang tag form factor. So I'm really excited about that one. One thing, actually, before I go to the next one thing I do want to say that kind of is a good point to bring up. This may cause a little bit of an issue on an existing site. So if you've tuned the system down to our current product line, and then all of a sudden you bought this next generation tag and they come in, and instead of reading at, say, 20 feet, let's just say now you're reading at 26 feet. That might be enough difference to make you have to go out there and readjust the reader to not, to compensate for both of them. If, and it may be in some cases even further than that. So what I'm probably most concerned about is if you've got two lanes side by side, we may start bleeding and reading tags in the adjacent lane, and you'll have to either turn the power down a little bit or do something with an arming loop in order to compensate for that. So that's the one concern is, yay, we're going to read significantly better, but there is a downside to reading significantly better. Is you might get some bleed over from an adjacent lane, or you might get some cars that read significantly better than older cars in the community. Say it that way. And then how we're going to deal with this, we're going to come out with some bulletins and some shipping notices. So basically, new tags will start shipping, and there'll be a notice in the box that'll tell you, hey, if you haven't updated your reader in the last X amount of time, or if your reader is older than this serial number or this date, you should probably do a service on the reader. And then down below is the ones that are covered. So, or the things that you would look for. So all of my Carinas, my new programmer firmware will cover all of them, UL and non-UL ones. The S2Ws, you have the option to update those. We're going to do a program where I will basically do a swap for you. So if you want to go, you don't have to necessarily upgrade your S2W. I would recommend you do it, but we're going to do a swap program for those. Procyons don't need an update. Tarvos don't need an update. So neither one of those two reader platforms you'll have to do anything with. And then the E2W is one that you'll have to do an update for. There isn't a huge amount. There's probably, in the world, there's probably 80, maybe 90 E2Ws. Much less than say my Carinas and everything. That's something you can contact me, and I can get you a file that'll be updated via USB. So that's a relatively easy one to do. So here's the big one. This is the one that I keep in mind. So I started shipping the new version of firmware to support the tag change back in November 6th of 2023. So anything that's old, anything that's newer than that has already been future-proofed. If you bought an S2W as a replacement part, after December 13th is when I started shipping the new versions of those. And those would all be dual compatible, old reader and new reader platform. And then if I did a repair after November 1st, I updated the firmware, I updated the configurations, and you should be compatible, new and old. So I try to proactively do this over time. And there's been a lot of product that's out in the world that's already been updated. And then one thing I want to do, RFID tools. This is a good one. Quick hits programmer primarily was made to update the SE1000W Carina, but there's a couple of functions that are universal. One is Wiegand test mode. You can put this thing in Wiegand test mode, and anything that comes across the Wiegand port, this 26-bit Wiegand will display on the screen. So you can take my module's output, make sure you get the Wiegand ID that matches the RFID tag. If there's any junctions, you can go to the next junction, test it there, and make sure you get the same ID. You can go all the way to the access controller, same ID. Anything that's 26-bit Wiegand, you have an HID prox reader, 26-bit Wiegand, wire it into my Wiegand port. It'll show the Wiegand ID. So it's a pretty powerful tool, and it also is powered by AA batteries, so it's portable. As long as you've got good battery power, you can go carry it to remote sites, do this. You won't even have to hunt for external power. And there's a serial test mode too. It'll display all the basically for my readers, the raw data. That way you know your serial port's good coming out of the reader, and that it's functional. That's the reason there. If you want to go a step further and do some custom programming, we make some cables. The big takeaway in this is the connectors on these cables are native to the SE1000W. So rather than having to take the screwdriver out and rewire a connector, it's plug and play. You unplug from one, plug into the other, and you're good to go. So that's something we make and we ship that help further doing an update or doing a configuration change on a reader. And then one thing we're working on here is handheld. Right now, our handhelds are rather expensive. I'm just going to say that up front, but we're adding value to the back end. The main reason you'd use a handheld is to test the tag mounting point. So if you didn't have the ability to take the car that you just mounted a tag to and drive it to the community's gate to get a good accurate read how far how far the performance is, you could take a handheld scanner like this and scan it and see the relative read range. The Pixis will give you a 30-foot read range. It's just as far as, say, the Carino. So you could mount the tag, or let's just say you want to do a rollout. This is a gated community. You've told all the residents to come in at 10 in the morning. They're lining queued up. You can start tagging resident cars using this handheld reader, testing the read range, and know whether that mounting point is good. If it's good, mount it, send them on their way. So it's a good tool for rolling out RFID tag installations. It's also good for troubleshooting a problematic car. One thing that we're working on in the background, so if you buy one today, you'll get one that has our Infinity app on it. It'll actually show you the facility code, the weekend ID from a distance, and authentic. We're actually adding a portion of it. We'll identify the tag for you too. So it'll say Infinity RFID, or if it's one of my peers, we're actually going to have the ability to show you whose tag it is as well, and actually give you the right facility code and the weekend ID. So it's going to be more of a universal type of test tool. Here's a new power meter we came out with. This one, the one on the left is our original one. If you look at the picture, that one is around $250 dealer. We're trying to make this other one sub $100 dealer. So the only thing that's really different between the two is this one is actually battery powered. So if you look at it, you've got a USB charger port. You got to charge this guy in order to get it to work. And then you've got a sensitivity adjustment. So what I'm doing is I'm actually marking where you want to set that sensitivity adjustment on this power meter to match the level and the settings of the more expensive one. But it gives you the ability to get in and at an economical price point, get an RF power meter. And what I would use this for is go to the job site, and this will actually give you an accurate representation of how far out that RF field is from the reader. So if you're trying to, dial in this reader, get it centered into the lane, this is the tool I would use. I would go out, say 40 feet away from the, far enough from the read zone, you don't get any reads. Take this power meter, start walking towards the reader, and then basically take a piece of chalk or something and mark where the edge of the zone is. So anything above, say, the 10 mark on that analog dial is enough to activate read an RFID tag. And what you can do is you can take multiple passes down the roadway, and you can see where that field ends up covering in the vehicle lane. And then you can manually adjust the reader up and down, side to side. You can adjust power levels to then compensate and fine tune where the reader is going to be. The one I'm really excited about is this one. So this is going to be probably a sub $150 tool. And it's an RF spectrum analyzer where I'm going to preset in frequency bands. So obviously for me, I want 902 to 928, which is what UHF is. But this will show you in that band what signals you have out there. So if you don't have any RFID, say you're going to just a project that doesn't have RFID yet, you could fire this guy up, put it in that UHF mode, and then it'll show you where the peaks are, if there's anything that's transmitting on that frequency, in that area, and how strong that power level is. So going into it, you'll know whether there's interference, and then what frequency that interference is at. What's even cooler about this is it's got a wide range from 10 kilohertz to 1.5 gigahertz. We could put in 900 megahertz. We could put in 300 if you wanted to see transmitters. We could totally do. That's what I'm really toying with. The idea is just taking a look at all the access control related frequencies and just put presets in there for all of them. And that way you could just go punch in which frequency you want to hone in on, attach the appropriate antenna, and then just start looking for interference. The antennas I show you in the bottom are what I'm going to ship with it. These are 900 megahertz specific antennas. I think the center frequency is 915. But there is also another antenna that you can actually adjust the length of. I think it's a great tool just in general for the access control side. The other cool thing is it's got a USB port where you can plug it into your laptop and actually record the data or say the data on a big wide screen. It's a really cool tool, and it's not expensive, like under $150 really, with all the cool things I'm going to put into it. So great tool. And then all right. So hopefully did we make it under the hour?
Well, Mike, I'm a tool guy, so I love seeing all the tools, and it's nice to go out to these job sites and not have question marks, right? Because a lot of technical support ends up being kind of subjective in some ways or
Yeah.
heading in certain directions based on subjective information. It's nice to have the tools to really get over the top. Answer this one last question and then we'll wrap up. So this Pixis, if I'm saying that right, only reads your brand or does it read other tags?
It reads other tags. So that's what I was saying about the app. Right now, the app supports and will display infinity tags with the write IDs. I'm working on integrating every form factor or every programming, trying to think of format. Yeah, every tag format that I know. So the only one I can tell you categorically I won't be able to do is I won't be able to do transcode because that's a different frequency completely. Not different frequency, different protocol completely. And I won't be able to do AWIT. But almost everybody else in the market will be fair game.
Awesome.
Because it's a pretty general tool. I want you to be able to use this tool. You know, I hate to infinity hat off. I want you to be able to use the tool with a lot of other people as well. Because it's a cool tool. And that way you can go there and see, all right, am I reading this tag? Is the ID correct? And how far of a distance are we getting on this vehicle?
Yeah. No, the Wiegand tool also, the spectrum analyzer. I get asked for that all the time or have throughout the years.
Yeah.
That'd be fantastic for remotes
Yeah.
as well. And then, okay, one more question.
Right.
Paul asked, is that, I think he's talking about the spectrum analyzer. Is that tool directional in nature?
No, it's omnidirectional, unfortunately. So what you're going to have to do is start walking and see if the level of power this thing is going up or down.
Yeah.
That's the way you're going to have to do that. You know, actually thinking about that. So the antenna that I'm giving you is omnidirectional. I'm wondering if I could find a 900 megahertz directional antenna. And that way you could actually start facing it because that would take a lot of the guesswork. That's a great idea, actually.
Yeah. Yeah, I know they make them on the some of the smaller frequencies. All right, folks. We got to wrap up here. Appreciate you all jumping on a Friday. Hope you have a fantastic weekend. Looks like if there's any more questions that come in, we'll make sure we get that answered in the post webinar notes as well. Michael, appreciate you being on. You're always so authentic, and it's nice to be able to talk to somebody at a supplier partner that you can go as deep as you want to go.
Exactly.
Right?
I appreciate you having me. I just love RFID and love sharing. So anytime you want any assistance or any questions answered, give me a shout. I love to help you guys.
You got the heart of a teacher, Michael. Appreciate it. All right, everybody. Take care now.
All right, take care.